Hello and welcome. My name is Nathan Edwards, and I will be your host for this brand new podcast called Everyone Has a Story. You see, here at Everyone Has a Story, we believe that everyone is unique, everyone has a story, and we want to know what yours is. You see, one of the things I've noticed about most podcasts is when they interview people, they interview famous people because for some reason they think that their story is a heck of a lot more fascinating than anybody else's, and I'm not sure why that's the case. You see, I don't agree with that idea. I think the person standing next to me in a grocery store, at a gas station, probably has a very exciting story, and probably sometimes a heck of a lot more interesting than anybody who's famous. And so that's what Everybody Has a Story, this new podcast, is going to explore. So I hope you'll join me. If you have a story you'd like to share with me and possibly share with the world, please let me know. You can get a hold of me by contacting me at my email address. My email address is knatradio@gmail.com. That's KNATRADIO@gmail.com. Speaking of stories, it's kind of an interesting story how I ended up having that email address. You may ask yourself, what the heck is K8 Radio? Don't worry, I ask myself that exact same thing all the time. And someday, I might actually explain to you why I call it K8 Radio. But until then, let's get going with our first and inaugural podcast. We interviewed a gentleman by the name of Charlie Gibson. Charlie grew up in Portland, Oregon, currently lives in Boise, Idaho, and he has a fascinating story. So sit back and relax and enjoy the very first ever podcast of Everybody Has a Story. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's good.
I'm glad to see you here. Thank you for coming down and visiting the family.
Absolutely.
So, man, this feels like old times.
I know. K8 radios.
K8 radio. That's great.
Yeah.
No, gosh, how much were we used to do? Like
at least one a quarter.
Yeah, we tried to do once a month.
We did try to do
for
once
a while
a month,
there. We were succeeding, and it was a lot of work. I mean, it was a whole heck of a lot of work, but
especially on your end because you'd have to like sort through a lot of the music. I mean, I could blab about it, but you had to actually.
Well, that always sucked when we did 90 minutes worth of recording and then it didn't work and we had to do it all over again. That was always fun. Or I got done and we listened to it. We were like, that sounded really bad. We need to do this again. You know.
Actually, I didn't mind those parts. I didn't mind doing that again.
That's good.
So.
That's good.
Recording fun was fun.
Recording fun was fun. All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
So, we've been friends for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Gosh, since 1992.
Yep, 1992.
So 25 years worth of knowing each other. That's quite a long time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quarter of a century.
Exactly.
It's a lot. So, but I'm not sure if I really know your whole story. I mean, I know quite a bit of it, but I don't know if I know your whole thing. So you're from Oregon originally, right?
I am from Oregon originally.
So,
Portland born.
Okay.
And stayed around there. I think we lived in the country when I was like really young for like probably 2 or 3 years, at least till I was in preschool.
Okay.
And I think before that, like I don't even know all the stories, but I think I lived with my grandparents for a while. So like as like just past infancy, but before I was like 2.
I see.
I'm not sure about all those. It's all hazy.
So you lived in the city then, for the most part?
I lived in the city.
Okay, like right smack dab in the middle of Portland.
Right in the middle of Portland.
Crazy.
16th and Stark. So.
Oh, nice. So that means nothing to me.
Exactly. But anybody that's been there, they're like, oh, okay, I kind of remember where that's at.
All right, that's fair. So how many siblings did you have?
I have one natural brother.
Okay.
And he's 3 years older than I am.
Okay.
And then I had a sister that was adopted when I was 3. And then we had, then my folks started their group home when I was 5, and it was a group home for handicapped children.
Okay, so there was a lot of rotating kids. How was that? Was that weird, or was that? I mean, what did that do to your childhood to have those kind of, just to have that influx and outflux of kids, and especially kids with special needs? How was that?
Well, it was good because it taught me a lot of skill in actually like being around multiple kinds of people. I didn't have any preference. I mean, I wasn't taught any preference of race or, anything. I mean, it's like these are people, defective or not, and you just do. I mean, you live life. You're, if they punch you in the face, or if they sneeze on you or anything, it's just, that's life.
That's
and
what
you just kind of go, and you're going to do it back to them. So, I mean, it's...
Wow. So why did they start a group home? What?
I think it was a kind of a divine inspiration for my mom.
Okay.
I think that started it, and my dad is one of those people that this is where this is what I noticed most about myself in him is once you get a good idea, you follow it up and you just like drive it and you do your best to like make it succeed.
Yeah.
So
how long did they run that group home then?
Oh, they ran it till, let's see, I left for college when we started it when I was 5. Our first foster child was Brian, who was later adopted, but he was our first, and he had a cerebral palsy, and so was very wheelchair bound. And let's see, that was 1978, 79.
Oh, okay.
And so I was 5, and I went on till I went to college at 17, and then they carried it for another 3 or 4 years.
Wow. So is that like all they did, or did they have jobs outside the home, or what happened there?
Oh, my dad worked for Wonder Bread.
Oh, okay.
He was their inventory control manager, and he did that pretty much until I left for college, until they kind of disbanded that office.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So. And was it retirement age at that point, or what was he?
No, he wasn't retirement age. Soon after that, the bakery was repurchased by somebody else, and he stayed on for a little bit longer, and then he'd had a massive heart attack, I think, and I think that's what it was, or something along that lines, where they did have to open him up and stretch things out and do bypasses and whatnot.
I see.
Yeah, so
stressful time then.
That was about close to the end of the group home too. Wow. So I mean,
okay. So did you go to church when you were a kid, or what?
I did. We started going to the Nazarene church close to my house, and would go on like the Sunday evenings. We'd go out to the Baptist church out in another town over, in Gresham.
So is that why you went to the Nazarene church, because it was close, or was there any Nazarene in your family before that?
I had a great aunt that was going there.
Okay.
But mostly it was because it was close.
Okay.
Because we could actually, it was less than 3 miles, and could pack all the kids in the van, and we'd all go there and hang out with the aunt and stuff. So
I see. So you said you also went to a Baptist church as well. So you would go to 2 church services a week?
I'd go to church services a week.
You did, or your whole family did?
Well, my dad wouldn't. They wouldn't go They wouldn't take all the kids in the evening because it was just too much for all of them.
Okay, yeah. So how many kids at one time did you have in the house?
Maximum time we had 10 kids in the house.
Oh, how big was your house?
It was huge.
Was it? Okay.
It had 4 levels to it. It had a basement, 2 main levels, and then an attic. And all of them were converted into rooms.
I see.
So there were rooms on every level.
Okay. So it wasn't like you were all crammed into some sort of sardine can.
Oh, no, it was definitely not a hovel. It was like a big... Well, the house itself was over 100 years old.
Oh, okay.
At that time, so...
Wow.
I mean, we found...
So it had some class then, right?
Yeah, it was a simple squared off house, but it did have some elements to it that were really cool. Big wraparound porch.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, we found up in the attic one time, like we peeled off one of the walls and found some old papers from the 1920s and stuff.
Oh, really?
So they were all pretty well mangled, but you could find dates and things.
Huh. Well, that's kind of cool. But so there was at least enough room for everybody to coexist without feeling like you're walking on everybody. So at least you didn't have to put up with that. But
most you had sharing a room was 2 kids at a time, possibly.
Sure. So you had this situation where you had. I guess 6 to 8 foster kids or whatever they were living with you guys. How did that go with so you and your brother, your full brother, and then you said you had a sister that was adopted, right?
Yeah.
So how did you guys feel with your relationship with your parents? Did you feel like all those kids took away from your family?
It was and it wasn't. I mean, it's looking back, there were times where I was frustrated, but there was so much to do that, and then it's like when you weren't working, it's like your free time was kind of your own, and like I would find myself wandering, walking to parks and walking to the stores and stuff by myself.
So your parents weren't helicopter kid parents or whatever they call them these days, right?
No, they weren't.
They were free range kids or parents, right? Yeah, that's cool. Well, so it didn't really, you didn't feel like your relationship with your parents suffered because they were spread thin?
No, well, I would say there's no absolute there. I mean, it's always going to be a gray issue.
Sure.
Because there are things that I think that I could have handled better if I would have had more guidance.
Okay.
Then there are things that I'm glad I didn't have so much guidance because I figured out a way to handle them and help me grow up. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Sure. So you went to elementary school. Were you a good student, a good kid, stay out of trouble? What happened in elementary school?
It was very hard for me to make friendships.
Okay.
And so I might have had maybe one friend at a time because kids didn't come over to our house. They were all freaked out by the kids and stuff. So,
I see.
Yeah. So I didn't.
So is that the biggest reason why you had a hard time making friends was because of that circumstance, or was it because were you shy, or what was the deal?
It was a little bit. Well, I don't know that I was actually shy. I was very self-conscious.
Okay.
And so that had a big part of it, and I'm still really self-conscious. Most people probably don't notice it because I mask it really well.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
Not like most people.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, but I think that it freaked people out to come by because they'd see all the kids out on the porch, or I'd be out in the yard like leading games with them or something like that, and it would set a tone.
Right.
So it made it difficult for like them to want to stay.
Yeah.
So, and every once in a while I would get friends that would stay around a bit, but it's like, and then most of the time it's the neighborhood that I was in was always in transition. So people would like come and go.
Oh, I see.
So,
okay. But you were a good student for the most part then, or?
It's probably a B- student. I never because I focused on doing schoolwork at school and keeping homework at home because I already had enough to do.
I see.
So I never did extra. I never went up above and beyond.
You just did
so
what you needed
was
to do
required
to get past
and to look better than I was.
Okay. Yeah.
Look a little more dedicated.
Yeah. All right. Well, so then you had like, how does the school system work in Portland? Do you have like a middle school after elementary school? Or?
I did. Okay. 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. So.
Okay. And how was that transition period? Because junior high / middle school can be kind of weird. I mean, I remember it being, really hard transition for me because I remember being in 6th grade and having a whole bunch of friends. And then I remember the first day of 7th grade, because we split at 7th grade here, those friends were gone. They didn't want to have anything to do with me. It was like that day was like a decision that they had made, and this is the path that they were going to choose to be whatever clique or popular or whatever they wanted to be. And I'm just like, I felt stunned in a certain way. Like, what just happened? It was really weird. So how was it for you in that transition period?
For me, it was much more liberating because my elementary school was only 2 blocks away. My middle school was actually like 3 miles away.
Okay.
So I'd ride my bike every day, or I'd walk. Well, at first we started off taking the bus, and I got kicked off one time because of something somebody else did, and decided I would never take the bus again.
Okay.
And so I either walked to school or rode my bike, and that changed me as well because being in a place where you're in control of a bunch of people and then having freedom after having that gave you a lot of sense of really how to manage things around you and how to manipulate things. And so time management, being able to kind of like dig away more time for myself was amazing. And so if that was just in transit to school, it was fantastic. I'd get up earlier. I'd get up and get like 1 or 2 kids ready for school and then run off myself, take my homework, do it in the first hour before I got school started, and then have my day at school and then leave. And it was great.
And so did that follow you all the way through high school as far as that type of a deal was concerned, or?
Yeah, pretty much. It was I was actually able to make more friends in junior high because they had no idea where I came from. And so other than...
So it almost felt like a fresh start in a way?
It was a fresh start, yeah. Nobody knew who I was, or the 2 people that did know, or the 5 people that did know, they weren't my friends anyway. Yeah. So, and they didn't have any weight over anybody else talking to me.
Okay.
So
when did your, as we established earlier, I've known you for a long time.
Yes.
So when did your love of art begin? When did you find out, hey, I can kind of draw?
When did that happen?
Oh, I didn't really start drawing well until probably high school.
Really?
I was a horrible drawer. It's just that there was nothing else I wanted to do. Because my brother was actually between us was the better artist. I mean, just much better, far and away, just like had way more talent. Could animate. I mean, he could add life to a cartoon that wasn't there. But his was very much more a comic book style where everything was very masculine and everything was driven.
Okay.
Whereas mine was more sensitive and very much more rounded and much more. I mean, you could tell that kids could look at it and identify it with it more.
Right.
And
so does your brother pursue art?
No,
anymore?
no,
he doesn't do it anymore, huh?
No, his son does though.
Oh,
my
okay.
gosh, yeah, he's good.
Really good, huh?
Yeah.
So I remember when, which we can get to, I guess, the established fact that we went to college together and that's where we met. But I remember watching you draw in the chapel services, and you had this strange style back then that I remember. It was like a scribbling type of a style.
Yeah, it was more about filling the space.
Yeah.
And it was more, and I think it was because I was depressed at the time. I mean, at that time I was dealing with when I was the problem is when I was growing up, besides like having a hard time making friends, it's like somebody like pretty close to me would die every year. And it bothered me until, I was like, in college I had like pretty bad depression over it. And struggled with it, got on medications for it and everything by then. At the time, the art reflected that because everything was dark coming to light, and it was, for me, it was a transition of actually having my spirit and my art and everything revealed to me.
Okay,
it's kind of like growing in it. So
okay, yeah. Well, so I had a comment and then I totally forgot what it was just now. So I love that when that happens. So you didn't really.
This
pick
is the
up,
time to edit it out.
right,
Yeah, no.
yeah. Maybe. So you really got into art in high school, and but you weren't necessarily that good at it. At least you didn't feel that good at it.
Oh yeah, no. I worked on it all the time. I worked on it. I've been drawing since I was 5, and I never really stopped drawing. I had injured myself a couple of times when I was young, and so I couldn't play sports. And junior high, I'd been injured by somebody else because I stuck up for somebody in a fight and got my knees kicked in, so I couldn't run.
Oh,
so they'd always fold backwards on me. It's been that way since I was 6th grade.
wow.
So couldn't go out for football. Tried and failed and. Yeah, it was one of those.
So, when you were, so you had a love of art, and that you just constantly practiced with, and obviously, that's a good sign of why you do what you do now, and you're as good as you are now, is because you practice and practice and practice with it. You also have a love of music.
I do.
When did that start? I mean, your love of music is not just like, I think I'm going to turn the radio on, but your love of music is, there's a band playing tonight, I'm going to go, and there's another band playing right after that 5 minutes and 10 miles away. Yeah. I'm going to make it to that one as well.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It started off because I used to go to a lot of used record stores in Portland. Well, there were like 3 main ones. No, there were 5 main ones, and I would drift to every single one. Okay. And I was in some bad rackets, and eventually I had to pay those back because conscience getting the better of you. But I had some rackets to claim like chump change and like bus fares, and I would like buy and sell like books from yard sales, and I would steal, because Oregon has a pop deposit. I would steal cans and from the grocery store after they've already been counted and carry them in through another store or another door of the same store and get them recounted and get money doing that. So, and then I go
caught doing any of these things.
I've never been caught.
Wow.
Ever for any of the like weird stuff that I would do. I have never been caught because I just didn't talk about it. I didn't talk to anybody. Never brought anything up, but I never went without. It's like I was always able to buy. If I were walking somewhere with somebody and they didn't have anything, I could buy them lunch or.
So yeah, right. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. So you said you went to church when you were a kid. You went to the Nazarene church and you went to the Baptist church as well. So when did you really start to believe that God was your thing, for lack of a better phrase?
Probably. really focused in on it during my sophomore year. It was my junior year of high school. Everything like came to understand as a reality because I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't a good kid. I was just one that would show up and do stuff. And I heard a sermon on Samson. And how Samson was a guy who could, he could rip things. He could rip apart lions. He could knock down buildings. He could beat up people with just a bone, and and all of it because God's Spirit fell on him, and it was like all these amazing, amazing things. But then it came down to the point where it's like every time that happened was because he compromised in something, and like it was totally almost like a waste, like because everything could have been circumvented. And stuff, and how everything that it came about, whether it was good or bad, was all because he'd compromised somewhere else.
Right.
And it totally changed my worldview of the way I'd been living, and the way I'd thought about how God works with us. And it was that I could actually step up my game and be the real person that I need to be.
Okay. And so that was your junior year of high school where that kind of started to change your shift in your thinking and the way you're processing how life was supposed to be and that kind of stuff. So then by the end of your high school career, you'd really started to get kind of hardcore involved in church and religion, or what? Yeah.
I actually I led a few kids classes, was did stuff with the youth group, fundraising, all that, whatnot. The stuff that teenagers usually do. Was more like when I was focused at the home, because my folks still ran the home, so we still worked all the time. But it gave me more of a hope of what the outcome was with all the kids. It helped me understand the true outcome of what was happening with each child. Because seeing the way some of them come out at the end was starting to happen. I was starting to see that, and how actually like human contact and treating somebody with respect actually turns around and changes their lives. Okay. So it was a good dynamic time for me.
So that's good. I got to ask you though. I remember you telling me at one point that there were times, and I don't know how much this happened or what, but that you would go beat up skinheads.
Oh, yeah.
What time frame did this fall into?
This was probably
because we're talking Portland here, so we're talking a very progressive city, but it does have a really weird underbelly of white nationalist people there.
Right. Oh, yeah. That was probably closer to my junior high school stage, and it was more the kids that were coming out of my school, and it wasn't just like I thrashed them. It wasn't quite like that. Focusing back on it, it's like I would start the fight and I would get the fight rolling. Yeah. And then I would find the biggest guy that didn't like them and egg him into the fight. Because he thought, it was like you find somebody like that and they're thinking that you're with them. I mean, you're on track with them. Right. So I egg him on and then I leave the fight. So it started a thrashing that, wasn't necessarily mine. And then it wasn't so bad. It was more like a territorial marking than anything. Okay. It wasn't one of those where people were dying or going to the hospital.
So you weren't doing it necessarily out of an ideological bent. You just what?
Well, it kind of was, and it kind of wasn't, because I was getting associated with these people because we liked the same shows.
I see.
And
concerts,
same rock shows.
Punk shows for the most
We'd go to the punk shows. I was going to the punk shows at that time. Right. I would do that, and then I would sneak into practices for the classical music and jazz musicians in Portland. So, got it. So but the punk shows were kind of, because they were close to home. It was like there were some things that I didn't like. Ideologically, I really didn't like what the skinheads stood for, because the hate was so strong against superficial things. Yeah. If half of them knew where I lived or knew what kind of kids were in our home, it would be a target all the time. Yeah. And I'm sure that and I know that at one point it was, when one of the houses down the block or 2 blocks away became skinhead residence. And I think there was a Filipino friend of my brother's that ended up burning the place down, but at the same time, it's like,
Okay.
once things get close to home, you kind of like,
Yeah, it changes things.
it changes everything.
Right,
Yeah.
it becomes a little bit more personal.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Oh, well, okay. All right, but by the time you were starting to get into God and find that might be the focus of your of how you're going to believe and how you're going to, run your life.
Yeah.
You were out of that phase and that's
Yeah,
kind of fallen by the wayside.
It
were you
was-
still doing punk shows? Or what were you doing?
I'd pretty much stopped doing the punk shows because I found that the aggression in the music was making me angry all the time. It was helping me stay angry all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I just wasn't into living that way. So I would go every once in a while, but it would always be as a bystander instead of like getting into it. I mean, I'd still every once in a while jump into the pit and like, run around and be an idiot and get hurt and hurt somebody. And
So were you mostly into mainstream music? I mean, punk rock wasn't mainstream at that point. It wasn't even close.
no,
But were you into Christian music or what was the deal there?
I think even with the Christian music I liked wasn't really mainstream. I mean, Michael Knott was like just coming on, and I'd heard one of his albums, like part of it, and I was like, oh, this is good. It was an artistic thing. Mad at the World was like one that I really liked. They had so many hair bands that
At that point, we're
and
talking
I
early
wasn't-
90s,
yeah,
right? Late 80s, early
late
90s.
80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And
It was hard to find.
it
the good
was.
stuff.
It was hard to find anything. I
yeah.
mean, you had to be from California to get it.
Right? Yeah. Well, I would think that it would have been easier for you since you were in Portland, but
And it probably was, but
the scene
wasn't
really blew
looking.
up in the mid '90s in Portland
Yeah.
for Christian music.
And I was already
alternative
gone
Christian
by
music.
then.
You're talking Mikey and
Uh-huh.
all those bands that came out of Tooth and Nail that were from Portland, Seattle area. Yeah, that was like
Because Tooth and
mid-90s
Nail
for the
didn't
most
open
part.
up until '92,
right,
and
yeah.
we were already in college. So
Yeah, I mean, so we're talking like the alternative bands that were around as well, Adam McGinn and the Choir.
Yep. And I went and saw the Altar Boys. I mean, they played at
the Altar Boys, yeah.
gym show close to my house, and
Yeah.
it sounded awful. I felt bad for those guys because it did. It sounded so bad.
Yeah.
It echoed so bad.
Well,
in
if it
there.
wasn't for Frontline Records
Yes,
or even Michael Knott's Blonde Vinyl,
blonde vinyl. Yeah.
there wouldn't have been anything out. I mean, I probably bought everything
Alarma.
that was on Blonde Vinyl's records. Well,
Oh, Alarma
Alarma
was part of Frontline, wasn't
right,
it?
yeah.
that's
So,
right.
but I mean, if it wasn't for Blonde Vinyl, there was so much stuff. Like they had Dance House Children, and they had Sincerely Paul.
Yeah.
I think was on
They
there.
had
and
Sincerely
a bunch
Paul.
of those others. Well, what else? Fluffy and all these really weird bands like that. Yeah, they were all on there.
Well, what was cool is that they would come out with a sampler every year,
Yeah.
and it would be stuff that they wanted to produce but
Yeah.
knew they couldn't.
But
That's
Yeah,
almost
right.
what I felt like.
and it probably was. I mean,
same-
Michael Knott
same
was
with-
pretty much broke.
Oh yeah, I mean
Most
that
of his
guy.
money went in a
whoa.
glass of liquor down his throat. But, well, I mean, it's
Well,
true.
Yeah, yeah. He tells you all about it in all of his
He
songs.
does.
And
He does indeed.
Man,
Make it a double.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you get through high school, and you've gotten pretty involved with ministry at that point. It sounds like.
Yes.
And so you're done with high school. What do you do? What happens?
I didn't know what I was going to do. I just was. I was tired of living at home. Didn't want to stay home and work and care for kids. And so as soon as NNC at the time,
NNC.
they showed up at my church.
Oh, okay.
And they said, "Yeah, you should just fill out some paperwork and take this test and see if you qualify for a scholarship."
Okay.
And I did. I qualified on the ACT, which was wrong because my score wasn't that good, but they gave me like $1,000 a year or something like that, or $1,000 a term for the first 2 years.
Better than scholarship I got.
Right, and I think it's because I was going to a Nazarene church at the time too, so
yeah.
I think that helped.
Yeah, it does.
And so I was like, "Yeah, I'm out the door. I'll see you guys later." And like, good luck. And kind of the story of my life is that a commitment comes up and helps me shove off other older commitments that I really don't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
So this one came up and it was like, "Oh, this is an opportunity. I'm going to take it." My parents were fine with it, which really surprised me. But I went to NNC.
And what were you initially majoring in?
Education and art and history.
Okay.
So I did that.
Did you graduate with that, or did you change your major?
Oh no! I made it 2 years, about halfway through the program, and changed my major. No, I was halfway through my junior year, so I was almost done. with most of the core classes because I'd take extra classes off and on, and all of a sudden decided that I felt like I had run into God. I found a more spiritual level of relationship with God, and changed my major to practical theology. I think that's what it was called, or just religion or something.
So what year are we talking here? 91?
This is 93.
93 by this time. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what
No,
drew
it
that?
was 94. Shoot, it was
Was that late?
It was that
Before you changed your
late.
major?
I think so.
I thought you were already a ministry major by the time I started going to school there.
No.
Because we started in fall of 92 there.
Yeah, no, I was still an education major at that time.
So you said you were finding yourself having a deeper walk with God.
Yeah.
Exactly how did that come about?
I ran into a couple of guys that were in the prayer chapel of Chapman my freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
And
Chapman, that's the
freshman dormitory.
Okay.
Yeah, so
the one that caught on fire.
The one caught on fire, yes. the one I said, you should probably sell these bricks, as it's coming down, and eventually somebody caught on and started selling them.
Really?
They started selling chips and bricks at Chapman. So
should have sold the ones at our place too. The ones that,
right?
No, nobody wanted that one. Anyway. So okay. So you were talking to these people in the prayer chapel.
I was talking to them, and they said they were meeting for prayer every day, because they had a vision of something that was going to happen on the campus.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, man, that's brilliant. I don't think that I'm praying for that, but that sounds great. I mean, I would love to see a spiritual revival happen on the campus.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 of us met daily.
Daily in the morning?
No, in the supper time.
Oh, okay.
So you'd grab a quick bite and then go eat in the prayer chapel, and we prayed for, it was like 3 to 5 hours a day.
And this is why your sophomore year, junior year?
My freshman year.
Freshman year, okay.
Freshman year, and then what happened was that after we'd we didn't really cement as really really good friends, but we were comfortable with each other, and but the prayers went on for and it was half the year. It wasn't the whole year. I started up with them in the spring, and we prayed through to the summer break, and then none of them came back.
Oh,
I was the only one to come back, and so, but I caught the vision of where they were going and understood what they were praying for. They were praying for a revival, and they thought they were seeing it. And so I continued praying down beneath the theology building, the God building.
Mm-hmm, the God building, right.
Yeah, I'd pray there 3 hours or 3 hours a day. I'd be by myself, and eventually a couple of English majors joined me.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys they grew up church kids, and parents were either teachers, professors, ministers, missionaries, whatever. I honestly don't remember what their background was, but
right.
they decided to join me for prayer, and they caught an understanding that was going to happen too, but it didn't happen that year. And that was the year you came and got to know you, and was really glad. It was kind of a backwards friendship, It was we didn't get to know each other real well until closer to the end of when you were leaving,
right?
Which was fine. I mean, that's the way half of my relationships go, is that they're always off-timed and still never better. But during that year, we prayed. The 3 of us prayed for a little while, and then it was just me again, and prayed for that year, and then the revival happened the year after.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and it was pretty crazy. And the funny thing was, I totally missed it. I was working 3 jobs, and
wow.
but what was cool is that I was sitting in chapel when it broke out, I guess it started during a chapel service I was at, and before I left, I had this deja vu experience of because the first vision was of a snake that wound all the way through the campus, and this was the presence that was kind of blocking God. It was blocking God at every turn,
mm-hmm.
and but it couldn't get into college church.
Oh,
then all of a sudden, the light of God struck college church and devoured the snake.
Yeah, well,
and so it's all of a sudden during that church service, I had that reminiscent vision. It's that's interesting, because it wasn't even mine to begin with, and then, but it was happening right then, and then I had to go to work.
Well, I know I was only there for a couple of trimesters, but I would like to think that I had something to help along that deal.
Oh, absolutely.
And even if it was that stupid, immature letter to the editor I wrote.
Oh, yeah.
I look back at that, and there's parts of it now I'm like, you know what? It wasn't that bad of a letter.
No.
Especially for somebody who was 18 years old and just really kind of zealous,
Yeah.
which I was. But, I mean, I still stand by the things I said in there. I still stand by the
absolutely.
fact that there was 90% of the people going to that school were there because their mommy and daddy wanted them there.
Yeah.
And they were lukewarm. And since everybody thought that everybody else was Christian around them, there wasn't any reason to be on fire. There wasn't any reason to really be, firm and, zealous in your faith because everybody's Christian. Why worry about it,
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case. I mean,
No.
not everybody was Christian. I mean, they may have been Christian, but it might have been only name only, or they were Christians because their mommy and daddies were Christian, and that was it.
Yep.
And so, and like I said, we could have went to Boise State, the big evil university down the road, and probably found more
on fire Christians, yeah.
than what was at NNU at that point in time. And the next year, I go to Montana State. There was a population of 10,000 people going to that university, and I found more people that I thought were more on fire for God than most of the people I knew at Northwest Nazarene. Again, I'm not saying there weren't people. There was obviously people like you and the people you prayed with, and there was some of the friends I had, like Amy May, for instance. People like that. There were just
Talking to people about people that carried the fire for the college.
Absolutely.
And like,
so there's always hope, and I know, and I don't want to dog Northwest Nazarene University in this field because it's not just them. I think it's the problem that Christian campuses as a whole have across the country. It's not just a Nazarene thing. It's not a Baptist thing. It's just the problem that you have when you go to those kind of environments because it's such a it's a fake community in a way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. It's one that we're hoping, or at least that the people that are providing the occupants
Right.
are hoping
Yeah.
that something will catch on and stick.
Right. And there's genuine people that go there.
Oh, yes.
There's genuine professors, and there was genuine RAs and RDs. So I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I'm trying to say
Oh,
here.
no, of course not.
But the overall atmosphere, I felt like I was in my 5th year of high school.
Oh,
It was
right?
just that mentality. At least in my grade, the people that were starting that were in my year,
Where a lot
I
of
felt
people
like
were
they
still
had
trying to be rebels of some sort.
or popular or whatever.
yeah.
It was like they hadn't changed. They were still trying to find that clique that they had in high school, and it wasn't. And it was like, the rest of us are like, who cares? We're in college now. Who really cares? But when I went to a bigger university, it was really like that. It's like, I'm here to get a degree.
Right.
You can play with your cliques if you want. I'm here to get a degree. I'm paying lots of money, and I'm going to get my degree.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. And I had such pushback. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make this about me here, but
Oh, no.
I had such pushback from that letter because people would say, how does he have the right to say anything because he's only a freshman? And I'm like, I paid my $10,000 to be at the school just like the rest of you did.
Yeah.
That gives me every right to say whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they thought that I didn't have a right to say it just because I was younger than they were. Whatever, that's dumb. Anyways, back to you. So you prayed for the revival. You missed the revival physically because you're working so much.
Right.
But you end up graduating with a religion degrry.
I do graduate with a religion
Okay, so during
degree.
school, did you get married or what happened there?
No, I stayed. I met Sherry around the same time I met you, because you guys were.
That's a
hanging around
whole other
together.
story in and of itself, isn't it?
Which is funny because it's like I probably don't even know most of the story. It's like because I was working at that point. Again,
Yeah.
2 jobs and
I remember there
tons
were
of
times where we'd
credits.
be driving down the road, and I think I was like taking her to work or something like that, and we'd see you. We're like, "Oh, there's Charlie," and we'd honk my horn, and you'd just go, "Nyeh," stick your hand. in-
my usual
Yeah, right, exactly.
thumb to the nose and waving the fingers.
That's right. So,
Mostly is because I didn't know who I was waving at, and I was like, well, they're gonna know I know
Right.
that it's who they are.
So tell me a little bit. I mean, yes, again, the relationship between us three is kind of weird in that respect as far as the beginning is concerned. But how did you start to get to know Sherry, and what happened there? Because I honestly really don't know.
Actually, I got to know her because I was working because I worked for the security groups doing the they called it the escort service. It cracked me up every day. I get to put on my hat that said escort. Like, yes, every day. But it was
other connotations.
Exactly, that was the whole goal. But it made me laugh because it was something that the security folks came up with to like ensure people to feel a little safe to walk around with a couple of guys, you know, that looked a little bit rougher probably than what they are.
Yeah, right.
You know, at least be extra bodies to like, you know, call for help or something like that. Right. So, but yeah, because Kurtz Park was so dangerous.
Yeah, right. That whole campus was just really sketchy.
Nampa, Idaho.
Well, some of the dorms were a little sketchy, but that's another story in and of itself.
That's more because of the occupants.
Well, yes, for sure. And I'm talking mostly about the girls ones. But anyway. All right.
Yeah, so I met her through that, just because her dorm was the station ground where because Larry Tomlinson ran the whole kind of security and everything, and so I worked with him and met in their dorm and yeah, just things like I would find myself creating a lot of different things for folks to do. You know, I was like, if I had when my birthday came around, I like made a hide and seek game where we all scoured through downtown Boise, you know, or you know, we'd walk all over Nampa for one day. Because again, that's me. Like when I'm off of work, and just like when I was growing up and playing with the kids and making sure they were doing their homework. Yeah. I take my breaks and I went and just like would go wherever I felt I could. Yeah. You know, and whatever took me away, as far away from that work or thought that I would. And I think that, I don't know if that's the attraction for her to me, but we just kind of like clicked together, and, you know, it was kind of a subtle, you know, it wasn't like some sort of flaming romance or anything like that. I'm just not that kind of guy, you know. I feel sorry for any woman that hangs around with me because, you know, it's like, good luck. Yeah, right. But you probably won't catch me sitting around watching TV like my whole life either,
There you go. So there's a trade-off. Yeah. So okay, it's good. So you started dating her before you graduated.
Started
college.
Dating before. Let's see. So that was my sophomore year. She left to go to ISU, Idaho State University for
that's right.
a year.
Went with Cindy.
Yeah.
She lived with Cindy. That's right.
Yeah, and so then she came back after a year, and we still did a couple more years of school together, or another, at least one more year. And then we got married like the week after college was done. Yeah. You know, at least we were going to graduate and have our degrees before. Yes. So, you know.
And I couldn't go to your wedding, and I can't remember why.
I think you were at another wedding. I think that's when Doug got married, wasn't it?
What was the date again?
June 15th, 1996.
Yes, that's what it was. It was, I was in Billings.
Yeah, you were in Billings.
I was in that wedding, so yeah, I couldn't, because I knew there was a reason that I didn't go.
Yeah, because it's in Idaho. It was in Idaho Falls. Yeah. Yeah, so.
Okay, yeah. So then you guys, you lived in...
lived in Nampa.
Now, you got a degree in religion.
Yep.
Did you become a pastor?
Nope. That was one thing I feel like I was blessingly cursed with. You know, it's like, because I have all this potential energy, but then it wasn't, you know, I went back to working in special ed for 4 years. But it was stuff I needed to know. Stuff I needed to know about myself, stuff I needed to know about God and how we work together. And, you know, it's like trying to understand why when I'm at church I feel like we're trying to rule each other out. Yeah. You know, and I found as the more I studied, the more that wasn't true. Yeah. So
well, that's a good way to look at it. So you worked for basically a school, right?
Yeah,
for
I
the
worked
state.
for the school,
and
public school,
and then you got a job at.
Then I got a job at R.C. Willey.
R.C. Willey, and you worked in a family bookstore there too.
And I worked at family. So I had so many part-time jobs.
You did, yeah. But R.C. Willey was the
it turned into the mainstay.
The mainstay, and you worked there since 2000, right? Was that when you got the job?
1999.
99, was it really? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. See, we'd moved to the Boise area in 1999, and that's when you and I started to hang out. Yep. Quite a bit, and I think really, you know, solidified our friendship, as it were.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and then we had a lot of fun doing, like I said, these K-8 radios, which I could go into detail with, but it's really a long story and kind of stupid. So we won't really talk about those. But it was a blessing, and Have you been satisfied working at RC Willey? Do you regret it? Do you feel like there's something else you should have done with your life or anything like that?
I have always hated retail.
Yeah.
But I'm good at it. And so it's like when I started there, I was on the 1 year plan. I was gonna, I got this job on the trucks. I'm on the 1 year plan. I'll be done. Yeah. And then the years kept extending, and I found people that I wanted to work with and try and help them, change their lives,
succeed.
And and then that modulated into just like, okay, they're paying me enough, and I can work another job and pay stuff off and create that economic vicious cycle, as everybody does.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So you don't regret it then?
I don't regret it. I can't say that I do. It's given me, because the mass of the staff there is LDS.
Yeah.
And it's a conflict of my faith.
Right. It's an LDS owned.
It's an LDS owned chain.
Sure.
And it's given me a lot of leverage to have my personality, my background, and to and it's not. I don't think it's going to be me that converts Mormons, but I think if the conversion is going to happen or if they're going to change their minds and at least follow, if they're going to stay Mormon, they're going to stay Mormon with different reason.
Yeah.
They're going to understand. I think they understand grace a little better. They understand, because I keep plugging ideas that
I'm
aren't
not
natural to them.
Right. I'm not. In fact, I was talking to this about the gentleman I talked to last night, and first of all, I wanted to say to anybody who's listening to this, I don't. It sounds like maybe I have a dislike for the Mormon religion. I don't know if I necessarily do. I do disagree with it, as you said. I mean, theologically, I have disagreements with, but some of the most amazing people I've ever met are LDS.
Yes.
And I am convinced that there are LDS people who will never leave the church that I will see in heaven someday.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think it just all depends on where they're placing their faith.
Right.
Are they putting it in the church, which a lot of them do? And there's plenty of other people that go to other churches that do the same thing. Right? Or are they placing their faith in God? Are they placing it in Jesus? Because I think that's the crutch of it all. And if they even if their theology is messed up, if they will, look, I may think I've got my theology all together.
That's the thing, is that we're probably just messed up.
That's
in other
exactly
people's
right.
minds. Yeah.
You bet. I mean, I'm pretty sure my theology is just as messed up as anybody else's. And so 20 years ago, I probably would have had a completely different thought process as far as this is concerned. But these days, I got a lot more grace for people. You know what I mean?
Oh,
and I'll always err on the side of grace. Because I can't judge people. I'm not the one that sends them to hell. I'm not even the one that's going to say they're going to hell. If they don't believe like I do, I'm still not convinced they're going to hell.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
So, and I know that there's a lot of people out there today still in Christian circles that would just think that I'm a heretic for what I'm saying right now. But
there's still hope. There's still hope. That's the thing. Is that,
I'll give him the next Rob Bell book that comes out, and they'll be good. So we'll be good. It's fine. And then maybe I'll turn around and give him a Mars. What was that guy's name from Mars Hill, the pastor there?
Oh my gosh!
I can't think of his. Anyways, that's a bad joke I was trying to make, and I just failed. So we won't go there. But so you don't regret not going into some sort of ministry. You've worked at RC Willey's for what? Almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
18 years this August.
It's just nuts, man. That is nuts. Have you found any other outlets in your life to do things that just make you happy, or you feel like you're contributing to society, or whatever you want to say, do you find just, what's the word I'm looking for? Philanthropic things that you do. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So in 2006, one of my friends, Karen Brown, opened up a yarn shop in Nampa and decided she wanted some art classes. So she invited me to do them on summer breaks and stuff. And so I would show up on my day off and I have like 10, 12 kids doing art stuff. And so during this time, I'm also, in my church, I work with kids. I've always worked with kids. From church to church, every church I'm in. That and baking coffee.
Two things you're very good at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I still continue to, I've worked with kids, and I still will work with kids.
Yeah.
So in 2006, I was invited to do summer classes and spring break classes for Karen Brown, and I did that for probably 3 years, and realized that her scheduling is not going to match up with mine anymore. So,
okay.
I was there with one. I was at the Flying M coffee shop in Nampa with one of the dads, and all of a sudden, I stopped and I looked at him and his family, and I said, "You know what? I don't think I'm going to worry about working for Karen anymore and doing the art there. I really like doing it, but I don't think I need to do that anymore." I said, "I think I'm going to do it here." I looked around and I said, "Yeah, I think I'm going to do it here. I'm just going to ask him and do an art class here." And so they kind of stepped back and like, "Oh wow, that's kind of an interesting vision." And so I'm going to start. In fact, we'll probably start next month. And so I gathered supplies, and ever since then I've had.
And you just said, "Hey, can I do a class here?" And they were like, "Yeah, no problem."
They said, "Yeah, we got a conference room upstairs, and you can reserve that." And so I put myself down for every week for 6 months.
Oh wow!
And so I would do it every week, and then they came to me and said, "Well, we like your enthusiasm. We do want you to make sure to clean up after yourself." A couple of times we'd had a few spills that I didn't catch.
Oh.
So, but then they lowered it down to 2 weeks. You can only reserve the room 2 weeks a month.
Oh, okay.
And mainly because I had it for because at that time I had it for 3 hours. No, was it? Yeah, it was 3 hours a session. And they limited it down to 2 hours and twice a month.
All right.
Probably because at the time, it's like I could get, I'd have standard at that time. I had like 10 or 12 kids.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, the kids that were there were, some of them were church, some of them were not churched or didn't grow up in church. And because a lot of them were just like from the church I went to and like would show up and like because they knew, oh, Mr. Charlie's teaching art, let's do this. But then other kids would come and some of them had like violent tendencies.
Sure.
If they started arguing or fighting, one of them would grab a chair and start trying to hit the other one. So I was using the art group as like a social experiment, kind of like, oh, let's level you guys out, and eventually, it's like caught on.
So do you still do it?
Oh yeah,
you still do the classes? And
yeah, we just had one last Sunday.
They're still letting you do it, and they just want to make sure you clean up after yourself.
They were really glad when it started to tone down because for a little while there I had like 25 kids.
Oh my goodness!
And this is not a big conference room.
Right.
It's got like 2 long tables in it.
Wow, 25 kids.
Oh, that's great.
That's pretty impressive. So you'll just commute to Nampa.
Yeah, now I'm commuting to Nampa. At the time I was still living in Nampa, so I just sometimes if I didn't have access to a car, I'd like fill a backpack and carry like stuff in like a couple of bags in each hands full of art supplies, ride to church, ride over to the Flying M after church, and have all this art stuff and spread it out.
For a second there, I thought you were going to tell me you started walking to Nampa with your backpacks full of art supplies.
No, well, I did a few times. I did walk across Nampa because sometimes my bike didn't work either.
Yeah.
So, but it was only like a 4 mile walk. Or 3
but you never tried this when you were living in Boise.
No. I always drove.
All right, that's good. That's good. So you've been married for what now? 25 years? What have you been married? No, not 25 years. It's been like 22, 23, right?
No, it was like 26 years.
No.
Yeah, this is 2018.
You got married in
1996.
Okay, so that's 22 years.
Oh, 22 years. Okay, my brain's out. Sorry. My wife doesn't need to hear this.
Well, does she ever listen to podcasts?
Yeah, probably not.
Okay. Well, you're probably safe. I'm not sure anybody will ever listen to these podcasts, but we'll see. I'm not sure.
Right?
Might just be me. Who knows? I don't know.
At least it's a great catalog.
You know what? The K8 radios were just me. I listened to K8 radios by myself for years before anybody else wanted to listen to them. And then somehow we ended up sending about 30 of them out a month to 30 different people. And back in the day, that may sound like nothing, but the amount of work and the fact that we created physical CDs with actual artwork on them, original artwork every month, is pretty crazy. I mean, that was a lot of people. And we did it all free of charge. We didn't charge them anything. We didn't charge them postage. We didn't charge them nothing. And we were, man, I'll tell you, I was looking back at some of those ones that were fun, and I'm just like the one where we had the Nate's Top 10 list. You remember that one? Oh my gosh, that one was funny. And then there was a couple of the Napalm K8s that were like some of my all-time favorites.
Right on.
They were just so good. And then the Contempo K8s, we would make fun of all the. Remember we made fun of Michelle Tomasi.
Tumis.
Yeah.
Tumasi. How do you say that name?
Right. Well, because somebody got after us because we were talking over songs too much. You remember that?
Talking over songs.
Come to find out, it was all just a joke. They weren't actually serious. There was like this whole like rant about how bad we were as DJs, and I took it seriously. I don't know if you remember that, but I took it seriously, and it was Garrett, and I should have not taken it seriously. And he's like, it was all a joke. I was completely joking with you guys.
Because that was the top 10 what to do with the discs, right?
Right.
I like the Cheeto dispenser.
Yeah, that was great.
Of course.
It was funny. And then, we were talking over the song. Semblance. You were just doing all kinds of stupid things like that, if you remember. It was fun. But anyway, those were good times. I wish I had the setup that we got right here. This would be fantastic.
Oh my gosh, it would sound so amazing.
So folks out there in podcast land, whoever ever listens to this, let me just say a few things before I wrap up. There's a few things that Charlie hasn't really dwelled upon in his story, and one of them is that he is incredibly generous. And so in my life and in my kids' life, he's been probably one of the most generous people I've ever met. So in my mind, Charlie is not only one of my best friends, if not my best friend, he is Jesus incarnate. As far as his the way he treats people, he's generous. He was talking about doing the art classes, but I also remember a story that he told me that he would buy music and then he would burn them off. Maybe I shouldn't say this because it might be against the law. He'd buy, but he bought it. He bought the music. He'd burn it off, and then he'd give it to the public library.
Yep.
So they would have a bunch of music.
Still do it.
Yeah. So, and these are things that he does for people all the time. No questions asked. So if you guys ever have the chance to meet Charlie Gibson, you'll be a blessed person, because anybody who comes in contact with Charlie is never the same again. So I can't tell you guys how much he's meant to me and how much he means to my family, and my kids absolutely adore him. And he talks about how he works with kids, and I'm here to tell you, I have never, ever met somebody that knows how to deal with kids, especially troubled kids, like Charlie does. And he does it with a firm but gentle hand, and they respond like I've never seen anybody respond to anybody else. They will go from being the most angry kid in the world to being quiet and content, and it is amazing to me. So anyways, Charlie, I want to just kind of embarrass you when I'm saying all that stuff, but you're more than a blessing to, I can't even think of the word for what you mean to me and my family. So thank you very much for being my friend.
Thank you.
So love you, man.
Love you too.
Thanks for doing this for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
this
so
is fun.
we're gonna put this podcast up sometime in the next month or two, and maybe 2 people will listen to it. I don't know. So
if you're gonna do it, put it and you sneak in closeout music. Always make it Starflyer 59.
Starflyer 59.
That's
I should
my
do
band.
That. You know what? I should do that. Well, I thought I should do Danielson just for you.
Well, yeah. Okay. Smooth Death would be awesome.
Or maybe what else was like you were on a big Pedro the Lion kick there for a while.
Oh yeah, I was for a bit.
And well, who were you really into back in college? It was, I think you were really into Adam Again.
Adam Again. Oh
and,
my gosh, yeah.
You're the one that introduced me to Sincerely Paul,
right?
Which I love that album.
And any Mike Knott stuff. I mean, shoot, that was like.
And Rid on Water, I think you introduced them to me.
No, you introduced them to me.
That's right. I bought that tape just on a whim at the bookstore there in Boise.
Because I'd bought Sincerely Paul and wanted to buy the other one, and you bought the other one.
That's
like,
right.
Oh.
Yeah, it was good. So, anyways, man, we could talk about music forever, as we always do. But anyways, love you, man. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay.
Well, there you have it. Charlie Gibson on the first ever podcast of Everybody Has a Story. As you can probably tell, Charlie and I have a lot of history, good friends for at least 25 years, so it was a privilege to have him on the show. But you don't have to be a friend of mine to get on this show. In fact, I'd prefer to hear your story, especially if you are a stranger, because that's the point. The point of this show is to get to know people, to get to learn who people are, because everybody's unique, everybody has a story, and I want to know what yours is. So if you want to get a hold of me, please do so. You can email me again at knatradio@gmail.com. That's KNATRADIO@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Everybody Has a Story, or you can also follow me on Twitter, and you can also join our Facebook page at Everybody Has a Story. So please feel free to contact us in any way that you can there, and we'd love to have you on. Again, my name's Nathan Edwards. I look forward to talking to you in the future. And remember, everybody's unique. Everybody's got a story. What's yours?